I think the problems obviously are that you're both bringing traumas home. Like I said, you always think like, "Oh, I'm not doing that. Leave work at work and home at home," and that's a crock of shit, I think, personally. I've never met somebody who, like, can completely, like, block it off like that. Um, and so all those same things. I mean, short temper, like, lack of interest in hobbies, I mean, your stereotypical, like, things. I mean, times that by 2 now, and that want for, like, isolation. Now you have 2 people wanting isolation and that kinda thing. On the other hand, the level of understanding that comes when you can come home and just be like, "I had a shit call," like, and they just know, "Okay, I know what that means."
Hello, and welcome to the Front Seat Debrief. This podcast is intended to confront the unique mental health challenges that our veterans, first responders, and healthcare professionals face on a daily basis. My name is Josh Campbell. I am a social worker who provides therapy in a private practice, and my efforts are focused on these populations. I am a former Army combat medic and a former paramedic firefighter. When my struggles with PTSD became too great for me to continue working as a paramedic, I went back to school earning my BA in English from American Military University. Then I earned my master's in social work at the University of Michigan. This podcast has grown from my own experience coping with repeated exposures to traumatic incidents, my personal path to healing and understanding, as well as my educational background. I want to examine the lived experience of others in coping with trauma, their journey to find healing, and I believe that learning about someone's upbringing can often provide additional context through which greater understanding of their experiences with trauma can be achieved. It is my sincere hope that the content covered in this episode, as well as the episodes that follow, will provide listeners with a sense of not being alone in their struggles. Furthermore, I hope that by having these deeply personal discussions, we can continue to decrease the stigma surrounding mental health, normalize adverse emotional reactions to extreme circumstances, and build momentum for creating a positive culture shift within these professions. Thank you so much for choosing to listen. If you like what you hear, please like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with our progress here.
All right. Welcome back to the Front Seat Debrief. Today, my guest is Natalie Harold. Natalie got her start in public service as a dispatcher back in 2013. She then worked paid on call as an EMT at Portland Ambulance for 5 years. She graduated nursing school in 2020, just in time for the pandemic. She spent 5 years in a level 1 trauma center and now does some home nursing as well as industrial employee health, in addition to being a supervisor for Ionia County Dispatch. Natalie, thanks for joining me on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, you kind of know the format.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting that, and I should probably point this out, you and I have a couple connections, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, your significant other was my boss at Portland Ambulance for
Mhm.
the year that I was there. And now you're subject to me rumbling into your driveway randomly with the motorcycle because Phil and I, well, it's been a minute since we've ridden. I've
Yep.
been meaning to talk to you about that. But also, when you graduated nursing school, you came to Sparrow ER where I was working as a
Yeah.
paramedic.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of fun watching you as a baby nurse get thrown into pandemic shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'm sure we will dig into that more, but why don't you kind of give us a rundown of your background, like your childhood, how was life, where'd you grow up, what events or people influenced you in one way or another, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I grew up in the tiny town of Matherton, in Ionia County. Um, Parents divorced young, but I mean, we had a fairly normal childhood. As we got older, had some addiction on both sides there. Things got pretty rocky for several years, middle school, high school, those kinds of things. Um, Graduated from Pewamo, Westphalia. I went there my entire school career. And then I went to LCC, hopped into the EMT academy there while I was working. Um, Planned on doing EMT medic to nurse. I graduated with my EMT license and was nervous about starting to apply different places. And dispatch had an opening. And so I thought, well, I need some professional interview practice before I, reach out and try and get into my career field. Um, and they hired me. So I took the full benefits and I worked there for 5 years or so before I ended up going back to nursing school, but worked as an EMT part-time on the side while I was at dispatch. So
Okay. How was it for you going from EMT school to dispatch and
mhm.
then making that transition back into like EMT world?
Yeah, it was I mean, EMT schools. No, I mean, there's not much to it. I mean, you
Right.
know, there's not much to it. So, dispatch was pretty overwhelming. I took a good solid year to get comfortable here. I didn't want to be learning 2 jobs at one time. I didn't think I could be successful. And then EMT when I started out, was a little bit rocky. I didn't have the patient care experience yet, you know, just handling people over the phone versus in person but once I got comfortable, it was nice to see like the other side of the calls. Um then the downside of that is the same difficult people on the phone are difficult people in person. So you're just kind of double dipping, you know?
For sure. Um, were there any particular events in your early life that made you say, you know what, I want to work in public service?
I don't know so much as events, other than I joke about the childhood trauma, and just kinda, like, the chaos that kind of was our life for so many years. Um, a 9 to 5 just bored me to death to even think about, and, I think I was just comfortable sort of with unknowns. That was just kind of where I was, like, home base was for me, and so I think naturally I was just kinda drawn to something that was a little bit more adrenaline forward, or had the potential to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, my dad was a corrections officer. I have an uncle that's a police officer, that kind of thing. So I mean, I did have some exposure to it, but no
Okay.
real like driving force other than I don't know, a twisted sort of calling, maybe.
Okay. Um, have you been on nights most of the time that you've been doing this?
Um, it's been probably 50-50. I did a
Okay.
lot of time on days, but I've done, like I said, about half and half. I've done
Okay.
days and nights.
And then you're night supervisor currently, is that right?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay. All right. Um, yeah, what's been the feeling about your work? Like how does your experience and your upbringing, how does that make you feel being a public servant, being there for, people on in the worst moments of their life? And, I regrettably have had that experience of talking to you and like what I
Yeah.
thought was, the end, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
uh huge thank you. I don't know if I've thanked you before, but
Oh,
that
yeah.
made a huge difference for me.
Good.
Um yeah, despite how stupid I felt.
No need. No need.
But yeah, what's your thought about the work you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody who works in this field, I mean, 90% of what we deal with is pretty much bullshit. I mean, I would say it's rare that somebody is calling that has like what actually hits my emergency meter. So I mean, I think most days this job's like anything else where it's kind of like, what the fuck, Like I'm ready to get home, clock out. But yeah, we have the benefit of, the 10% of the time where you actually feel like, "Okay, that person needed me and I was able to be there." I mean, those days are why you do it, but it's cumbersome, it's repetitive like everything else. I always say there's, like, peaks and valleys. I mean, there's times I love my job. There's times when I think, "Why did I not go work for the state of Michigan at that 9 to 5 gig? Because that's looking pretty good right now."
Right. Um, yeah, and you know, we obviously on the show we deal quite a bit with like some of the bullshit that tends to follow us
Mhm.
home. You are not immune to that either, are you?
Oh, no. No, certainly not.
And I know you've had some very notable terrible calls.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, how has that sort of stuff played out for you? Like, what's your experience when you get done with that shift and you're just like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
how does that unfold for you?
For years, I was pretty unfazed, whether it be my age or just kind of a lack of life experience. Um, I was pretty prideful about the fact that, like, "I'm good, I'm fine." And then I had a really we lost an officer in the line of duty, and that really fucked with me, for a long time, and I notice my threshold is way different now. Um, it's almost like once that, like, deep cut is there, you just like, it reopens a little
Mm,
bit more easily. And so, I think we all think, "Well, I don't really take it home." I mean, I left that at work. But I went to a, mental health, training forum, couple day thing, up north a few years ago, and they were talking about all these, like, behavioral signs and symptoms of, like, post-traumatic stuff, and all of a sudden I was, like, sitting there and I remember texting Phil and being like, "Oh my god, I'm not just a bitch. Like, there's a reason that I'm behaving this way. Like, I think I'm a little fucked up, you know?" Like, maybe it's because of work. Like, I thought, "Oh, okay, this is just my personality." And, I think the work has certainly, affected how I show up for other people, how I, like, present myself to people, all that kinda stuff.
yeah. And, I feel like I remember when that officer was killed in line of duty, and I know that
Mhm.
was a really, really bad time for everybody involved. And
Yeah,
like I think at that point I was no longer in the business, so to say.
yeah,
Um, but it's one of those things that like you kind of get like the secondhand trauma, right?
sure.
Because all of your when you know how it is when you work in the industry, like all your friends are in the industry.
Yep, mhm,
And when your friends in the industry are suffering from shit, like I don't know if how you are, but I know I still feel that.
mhm, yeah,
And another example of that is like the suicides in town,
mhm,
right?
yep,
Um yeah, like there's so much to say, but what is there to say? Um
yeah, absolutely,
Tragedy, and there's really
mhm,
no other way to categorize that.
yeah,
Um and I think especially with the most recent one, I think that the community is finally starting to be a little more vocal about it.
yeah,
Um there was a walkout in the schools this week.
mhm,
This week my kids participated,
yep,
and like they definitely feel like something needs to change. And
mhm,
so um I think it's great because the conversation is happening in more public places,
yeah,
and that has
certainly.
not always been the case.
No, definitely not.
um What would you say some of the extra type of drama bullshit from the job has been like for you?
Oh, I think that is probably the most stressful part of the job. Um, as far as, I mean, strictly dispatch anyways, um, the standing joke is always kind of like first to be asked, last to be remembered sort of a thing. And I don't always like buy into that, like, woe is me kind of bullshit. But
Sure.
there are certainly times when there's an event, you do a debrief, and, everybody else is kudos to here, kudos to them. There's a lot of times when it's like, "Oh, the problem was dispatch. Oh, the problem," it's kinda like it really is reminiscent of, like, nursing in the hospital where it was kinda like, "Oh, you want phlebotomy? The nurses will do that. Oh, you're losing this service? The nurses will pick up that slack." That's kinda how dispatch is.
Okay.
"Oh, the officers don't have time for this. Alright, dispatch will pick that up." Um, the politics of it, I mean, we're catching heat from everybody all the time. Um, we draw complaints from the public. We draw complaints from the fire departments. PDs are pretty good. We have a really close working relationship with them, I think, and so automatically, when you have better relationships with people, there's a little bit more of a level of understanding.
Yeah.
Where it's like, hey, you fucked that up, but like we're buddies. I'm gonna call you and talk this out rather than call your boss and say, can you write them up for me? you know,
Yeah.
and I think that's the most draining part. Um, For me, anyways. I mean, sure, the traumatic calls are bad, the rough, but to me, it's like the politics side of things.
Well, and that stuff never quits. Like,
No, it's everywhere, and it's every job I've ever had, you know?
sure. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I know when I was on the bus still, like I remember one specific call that I started texting you, I think, like
Yeah,
saying, "Hey, that's not what I'm going to do here." So like,
yeah,
you know, it was a suicide call. There was an unsecured firearm on scene. I'm like, I'm not going in until law enforcement's there.
yep,
And we had that conversation on the sidebar.
yeah,
As far as I know, no one had any problems with that.
yep,
Um, so yeah, like I always came from a place where I thought, having a good relationship with the person sending you to the calls is important.
sure, yeah. Well, and, Phil, I think Phil would be one of the first people to agree with this. There were a lot of times, I mean, he was a pain in the ass
I believe
from
that.
From the dispatch perspective, I mean, he has a hair trigger too, and so, like, working for him, there were so many times he would send an email or something, and I would text him and be like, "You sound like a flaming fucking asshole. Do you wanna resend that?" And, like, I mean, and I just thankfully, like, he didn't fire me anytime I did that, but there was a lot of times when he would just light up over something that we did from dispatch. And I would explain it to him and say, look, you don't know all of the different things that went into what happened. So here's what happened. And I would say 95% of the time he'd be like, okay, I had no idea. And it's kind of like, right. I mean, that's fair. So ask before you know, I mean, I'm always open to people inquiring. I love teaching people about it because I know most people don't understand, like, okay, when a big structure fire is going on, what's it like inside here? I
Oh,
mean, you don't know until you know.
right.
Um, but yeah, it's nice when people inquire, or have those sidebar conversations where it's like, "What the fuck were you thinking?"
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like I think in any industry, like rather than like going over the person's head or
Yeah,
taking official channels, like
yeah,
solve that shit at the lowest possible level, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
Like everybody will be better for it.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, to your point about Phil, like he was a good guy to work for too, because like even when
mhm,
he would come across hot, be like, all right, pump the brakes, big chief, because this is the
exactly.
deal, right?
Yeah,
And like I know that he stood up for me because there was a
mhm,
time that I brought a trauma light into, Sparrow, Ionia. And
Yeah.
when I called in radio report, they flipped out because I didn't have a line started on the guy yet.
Yep.
Well, so they complained about that shit. But I said to Phil, like, did you ask him what kind of a line he had when he got there? Because he had at least a 16, probably two.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, I basically told them to shove it up their ass. Like,
Yeah.
so I
Yep.
definitely appreciated that aspect of him, like when he was defending our
Yep.
actions.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, I still really appreciate that aspect of him, for
Yeah.
being honest. Yeah. Um, how do you think all the negative impacts from the job have changed your perspective on the work?
I think it just overall makes you less passionate, you know? I mean, I think the burnout, I think that's where the burnout a lot of times kinda comes from, is just kinda like, "Man, no matter what I do with this call, someone's gonna be unhappy about it." Um, and that really makes it hard to, like, want to do the job. You know,
Mm,
it's how do you motivate people to pick up the phone when they know before they pick it up that somebody's pissed, somebody's calling up, you know? When they're sitting there and they take a call and they hang up and they say, "I know so and so is gonna complain about this because of this, this, and this."
mm,
And, like, it's hard to sit there and say to them, "Don't worry about that. You know, you did the best you could," when I'm sitting there thinking the same thing. I mean, it's like, yeah, they are, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it. Um, I think it just, like I said, kinda takes the passion and the drive out of the job a little bit for everybody.
sure. What what has burnout looked like specifically in central dispatch?
Oh, yeah, short fuses, uh, excessive call-ins, you know, you can just tell the attitude in the room, you know, is when you have one person that's burned out on a team, when you're talking such small teams of people, it's a drastic it plays a drastic role on the overall vibe of the room, you know? Um, their partners are affected, and it does. I mean, you can just tell by how they answer the phone, how motivated they are to, you know, beat their partner to the phone, or how tolerant they are of the responders and that kind of thing.
Yeah. How many people are working in central dispatch at any one given moment?
We try for 3, um, but a lot of times it's 2 people and a supervisor usually, unless one of us is off. We don't typically backfill the supervisor spots,
Okay.
'cause of overtime and stuff. Um, but yeah, so minimum 2.
Okay. And what sort of call volume are we talking about?
Oh, you know, it really depends on the day. Um, I mean, slow days in the winter, we might generate 60 to 70 CFSs, calls for service in a day. Busy summer months, I mean, we might hit 2 to 300, you know,
Mm,
depending on, especially right now, construction season on the highway. Those crashes just kill us. Um, so it varies so greatly, and that's the problem with staffing here is, um, like, what we have in the room is just what we have. I mean, there's nowhere else to pull from. I mean, so we always have to staff for worst case scenario, or we
yeah.
try to, because it's like when it gets shitty in here, it gets real shitty real fast. So,
Sure. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's worth mentioning. So like when you have a good working structure fire in
mhm.
Ionia County, you could have what? 8 departments responding to that?
Yeah, they had one last, oh, I don't remember if it was last summer or last fall. They had all, I think, 14 of our departments, 15 of our departments, plus they had like 2 or 3 mutual aid from other counties.
Holy shit, was that
Um,
one of the chicken barns?
it wasn't, no, this was like some sort of industrial, maybe like a cabinet business over
Mm,
on the west side of the county, I think.
Okay.
I was off duty, but it actually registered on the weather radar. Like,
Wow.
news agencies, like, did a little blip on it because they were like, "This is crazy, it's burning so hot that it's actually picking up on our radar."
That's insane. Um, but in that scenario, so
Mhm.
if you have 15 departments responding,
Yeah.
you're still monitoring fire ground, right?
So we try to. We don't have a policy that mandates it because we
Okay.
just simply don't have the personnel. We just can't, we can't put one person strictly on those channels. And it's pretty much the same thing for like even PDs when we have like an active incident. Say we've got like our TAC team gets called out or something. I mean, we try and monitor as much as we can, but ultimately they have their own channel. And they kind of go off and do their thing, call us if they need us, kind of a thing. Um, but yeah, because when there's two of them, I mean, one person can't get all the PD channels and all the other things that are coming in on top of that.
Well, right. And that was kind of my point because you can have an incident that is requiring a high volume of coordination and radio traffic,
Mhm.
but you've still got the phone ringing with, Granny fell out of bed again.
Yeah, I mean, our the big example I use of that, we had that 150 car pileup a few years ago. I had like 3 months in as a supervisor, and we didn't have enough consoles. Like we added consoles with this remodel that we've done recently, and we did not have enough consoles for people. I had people using portables that had never used portables before.
Mm.
And then I know you're gonna know the house I'm referencing, the regular people from Portland. Um, they
I
were
may know
calling.
one you're talking about.
They In the middle of that, they called for an incident that didn't hit my emergency radar, and I basically said, "Look, do you actually need this service? Because I got, like, 30 other people that truly do. So I'm gonna need you to, like, shit or get off the pot here." So yeah, I mean, you don't get the benefit of kinda saying like, "Oh, we're shutting down the rest of the county's calls right now because we have this shit show going on." So,
Sure. And, I think to clarify, in that particular instance, that address is one that sees service twice a week, once a week.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, and, you know, I don't want to say too much, but like, I don't think I ever once had a serious call there.
Right. Yeah. And we have multiple residences like that, and every county's the same,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
every service has those houses that they know they're going to for, you know, what really probably is not an emergency.
Yep. 100%. And, so I mean, really like, and we talked about, 15 fire departments or whatever, but
Yeah.
how many agencies are you coordinating
Oh, like on a specific incident or just day to day?
day to day?
Yeah, so we have, I think it's like 15 fire departments, and granted, most of those are volunteer based, so I mean, they're
Yep.
not all out at the same time. 2 ambulance services, and then we've got 6 police departments.
Okay. Um, and then I'm sure, you've got umpteen different wrecker services
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
all like the ancillary stuff. Like
Yep.
you guys have a ton of shit going on in
Sure.
dispatch.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing a lot of, we do a lot of, like, warrant work, for the courts. We answer a lot of court phone calls. Um, you know, we're always, like, we run lean, so, we're getting messages from other counties. They snagged somebody that's got a warrant. We're confirming all that. We're doing all the paperwork, making sure that we're coordinating pickups for inmates and, stuff like that. So
Okay.
there's all kinds of like administrative stuff too that goes beyond just like the 911 side of things.
Mm. Um, Now does Ionia City have their own independent dispatch or is that you guys as well?
Nope, that's us as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, But yeah, and then there's also prisons. Like
Mhm. Yep.
how many prisons?
Oh, I think the official number now is, like, I think we're down to 3.
Okay.
Um, but for a while there was 4 or 5 maybe?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And so I mean, like I'm sure you have calls going out to the prisons on
Mhm.
a regular basis. I
Yep.
know medically that happens.
Mhm.
And another issue is like many of the services, speaking about ambulance services here,
Yeah.
um, they are limited on staff because,
Mhm.
you can only staff so many trucks in a given area. But
Yeah.
once those calls start hitting, you can have an area that's without any close coverage. And so
Mhm.
then you have to find, okay, who's got the next closest bus to handle this call, right?
Yep. Mhm.
And so all of this is just to say that, like, y'all in dispatch are busy. There's
Mhm.
like not really a lot of time for extra bullshit.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, that's a lot. And obviously, like, it's super important.
Sure.
Um, and I think you do a great job, right? Because like you have to.
Yeah.
And I think you guys are definitely the unsung heroes because you're right. People forget that you guys are there.
Sure.
And I just did an interview with another dispatcher this week actually.
Mhm.
And in my conversation I had with Alex, we discussed how dispatch is frequently left out. And
Sure.
so yeah, it's good that people are beginning to recognize too that, like, look, dispatch has some need for closure here too.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think whereas my friends over at American Medical Response with their in-house medical dispatch, they get a much more direct line to having some sort of closure on calls.
Yeah.
I would venture a guess that you don't have that same connection being at like County Central.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, I would say over the years, things have shifted. Especially after that officer, line of duty death, the team that worked that, we all got really, really close. Like, just you have that bond, that trauma bond. Um, but I remembered that debrief after that incident, and I think every person that sat in on that debrief after that walked away with, like, a different appreciation of each other. But a part of that, I remember the sergeant coming up and after that saying, "I never thought about what goes through your guys' minds when we're doing this stuff, because 'cause I'm just out there doing it. I don't," and after that, he was very, very conscientious of, like, anytime we took a rough call, he would call up, he would stop up, and he would say, "What do you wanna know? What questions do you have? What can I answer for you?" And one of the newer dispatchers that we've hired in the last, like, 4 years or so, she started out she did an internship with us, right out of high school, and she actually said that she witnessed one of those exchanges between he and that was what made her want to work here. I had taken a call, and I actually had forgotten about it, which sort of speaks to, probably the level of exposure. That it didn't even, like, ping my like, I didn't even remember I'd taken it, but, it was, like, a verbal domestic, total, like, priority call, and the guy ended up killing himself on the phone, and, um, like I said, I was like, "Holy shit, I totally forgot I took that call." I mean, but afterwards, the sergeant came up here while this new dispatcher was in here during her internship, and he came up and said, "Are you doing okay? What do you wanna know? Do you want me to explain anything? Like, what do you need to close this chapter out?" Basically. And so I think a lot of us we're trying to get that to be a more regular thing, like,
Yeah.
but it's certainly not, it's just easy. People get busy, and you don't think about it. Like I said, I think the people involved in that debrief think about it because that's stuck in all of our memories. But if you haven't been exposed to something like that, it's just kind of like, whatever, move on to the next call.
Yeah. And I think something that might influence that here specifically is just how rural Ionia County is, right? Like
Hmm. Yep.
it's spread out. Like how long does it take you to get to work? 25, 30 minutes?
Yeah. Yep.
And I mean, it's really not that far away from here,
No.
but it's it's just how everything is. Everything is
Hmm.
a spread out mess, and
Yep.
so you don't have that, like, close proximity to be like, "Oh, hey, since I'm here," because nobody ever goes to central dispatch except for, cops, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that that would present a challenge.
Hmm.
And so I know that you and I have talked a little bit about, like, the debrief stuff, and
Yep.
you mentioned that you went to a SISM type class to
Hmm.
work on doing, debriefs and things like
Yep.
that. Um, how much of that do you think was changed, or how much of that change do you think was like kind of put into motion following that line of duty death?
Oh, so much. I mean, I'd been to debriefs before, but again, I had always kind of been like, yeah, that sucks, but like being able to detach, kind of like it sucks. I feel for them, but ultimately, like I was just kind of doing my job. That was the first one where like I really felt like the raw effects of like what the call involved. Um, And so that was the only debrief I think probably to this day that I have felt was effective.
Mm.
Um, and so I think it made me want to, try and bring that around a little bit more for us. Um, certainly.
And I think a lot of times, a big part of making changes to allow for more of that is really just a culture shift, and
Mhm.
that doesn't happen overnight.
No. Mm-mm.
And that's kind of part of what you and I have discussed, because like I told you, I'm willing to jet on up to central dispatch if
Mhm.
need be, right?
Yeah.
um which that's still an open offer.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But at the same time, like, in an environment that's not maybe the most receptive to
Mhm.
implementing that stuff, sometimes it takes more of a forceful approach, right?
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that, you know, maybe even this podcast can help, you know,
Yeah.
wedge that door open a little bit further.
Mhm.
Um and, like, I probably just need to drive up there at some point, right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
introduce myself. But um yeah, I'd
Well, and I
love to
think
help. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I mean, I think I would love to make it mandatory. I mean, there are calls that I think should just be mandatory, but, then you hear people say, like, well, if you force people to go to these and they aren't ready or they don't want to, sometimes that can be just as damaging. But we have this generational gap right now. I mean, we've got 30-year employees, 25-year employees, and then it drops to like 5, 6 years. Um, so you're dealing with the people that have been here for so many years that are like, I just want to put the rest of my time in. I want to get out. Um, mental health who kind of a thing. Like then you've got the younger ones who are seeing that and and then, I'm in a lot of, like, Facebook groups for, dispatchers, and the negativity on there, there's so many people saying, like, "Hey, I'm really struggling with my mental health. Should I tell my employer?" And all these people are like, "No, keep it a secret. They're gonna burn you. They're gonna fire you." And it's like, I want so badly to be able to, like, reinforce the fact that, like, no, this needs to be an open conversation. Um, and I think that's why I was excited to do this podcast because, I want them it's so hard for me to have a sit down with an employee and say, "If you need help, you need to be getting it." If I'm sitting there hypocritically knowing, "Hey, all these calls are, like, starting to stack up for me. It's affecting my personal life, it's affecting my work life," like, and I'm sitting here telling you, "Hey, go get a therapist," when I'm, like, not doing that myself.
Yeah.
So, I really hope that like I said, I would love to make it mandatory. I mean, we've had some shit calls lately where I think we need to do this. I mean, but I'm nervous about doing more damage than good, if I just don't know what the threshold is.
Yeah. And, like you mentioned a very key factor here, and I think it is that um the outgoing generation, the ones that are looking to just get to that retirement point,
Yeah.
they very much came up in that we eat our young mentality.
Oh, sure.
And I mean that was the fucking standard across
Mhm.
like all of the
Yeah.
services.
Yep.
If you can't hack this shit, this is the wrong job. You need to go find an office job.
Yeah.
Um, and so like it's very encouraging to me to hear that, these 4 and 5 year employees, presumably much younger than the folks that are on their way out,
Yep.
different generation, different mindset toward mental health
Mhm.
and, self-care. So that's going to be instrumental in like making a positive culture shift, right?
Yeah.
And just being willing to have conversations like this and
Mhm.
put it out there. Like you still have the responsibility of being a supervisor and
Mhm.
handling the job. And, you've got a lot on your shoulders. So in the moment, it might be very difficult for you to also be compassionate toward the needs of someone else who's like flagging under the load
Mhm.
uh in the moment, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
But as long as I think there's a culture that supports them in making positive changes and seeking help, then,
Mhm.
like you can still have a huge impact.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, like, again, the thing that you probably dislike the most about the job, politics, is going to be one of the biggest hurdles to get over
Oh, yeah.
in
Mhm.
making that shift. But yeah, so shout out to you for, coming on here and putting this out there because I think it's huge. Um, what what would you say? We talked a little bit about it earlier,
Mhm.
but like all the trauma that you pick up.
Yeah.
Well, for starters, how is the trauma that you are exposed to in your role as a dispatcher different from, say, the trauma that you're exposed to working in Michigan's busiest level 1 trauma center?
Um, boy, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of, like, dispatch's issue is, like, it's so much easier to control somebody or, like, control a narrative when you're in person, like, when you're face to face, when you can sit down and, like, provide comfort or, like, tell somebody, "Knock it off," you're speaking to a human being kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Dispatch, I mean, you're trying to teach these people how to gain control with nothing other than, like, a voice on a phone. I mean, I think that's where a lot of the difficulties come in. I mean, when you take those, like, traumatic calls where you're just trying to, like, how much comfort can you give over the phone? How much empathy can you show? Um, and then the unknown aspect, like you said, the lack of closure, where, I mean, obviously working at Maine, you're seeing all these things. So, I mean, you have the visual side of things. Um, but I think honestly the most traumatizing thing for me there was always feeling like no matter what we did, it was just never enough for any single person. There just wasn't enough of us to go around.
Mm.
Those nights where you're just like, holy shit, I just hope nobody dies while I have them in my care because I can just barely hang on. I mean, that's where I think, my like trauma, so to speak, came from there, anyways.
What were your nurse to patient ratios like when you're at Maine?
It was really dependent on where you were. If you were up in B Hall, I mean, I think they still would have 4 to 5 patients regularly. If I was back in D, I mean, I would have 7. If we were holding a bunch of like inpatients, which you knew was like a regular thing. I mean, I would have consistently 7 or 8 of them. But actually where I always got fucking stuck was Roz. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
They put me there like it was like a standing joke when they would hand out shift assignments at brief. Everybody be like, "Well, we know where Natalie's going," and I was always in fucking Roz, and I always was alone after like 10 o'clock. And several of like the veteran nurses were like, they wouldn't put you there if they didn't trust you. And I was like, that's bullshit. I don't give a shit if they trust me. Like, I texted Phil one night and I was like, I have 32 fucking patients back here. 6 of them have
God.
COVID. Like, I was running potassium drips with no monitors. I
Oh,
had like appies waiting for surgery. I mean, you know how it was.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I mean, it varied really where you were.
Yeah. I definitely remember trying to support Roz as much as possible. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
hallway full of recliners and shit.
Yep.
And
Mhm.
it was terrible because, you bring someone back from the waiting room, they've been sitting in there for hours and they're like, what the fuck? You're putting me in a chair in the
Yeah,
hallway. Like,
yeah, yep. Well, and then
that's
too,
what we
like,
got.
it was always, like, the catch-all for, like, our regulars that, like, they didn't wanna waste a bed on, and so it was like, you'd throw some, like, grandma back there who, like, is having, something she needs to be admitted for, and then you've got the regular, bipolar, verbally aggressive patient sitting next to her, and it just was like an episode of Jerry Springer some nights, like, these non-aggressive people were getting into, like, these verbal altercations with, like, some of the, kinda, like, drunk residents of Lansing, and you're
Yeah.
like, "What the hell is going on?"
Never a dull moment.
No, no, there wasn't. No, and I mean, like, the level I mean, this is not a proud moment, but I tell this a lot of times to, like, new grads and stuff, like, I was in, like, C Hall one night with a bunch of, like, holds waiting for
Mhm.
beds, and, a couple of them were really sick, so I was spending a lot of my time in there with them. One of the patients, super easy guy, didn't complain, he didn't need hardly anything, he got a bed. I call report, and of course, the floor nurses, God bless them, but they're always like, "How's his skin? How's this? How does he get around?" And I'm like, "Haven't gotten him up, but I think he's great," like, "Yep, he's independent." And, I rush him upstairs, try and clear out the room quick, and, we went to transfer him from the ER cot to the bed, and we uncovered him, and he was missing a leg, and I, like, had no idea. And the nurse just, like, looked at me and was like, "So but he ambulates independently," and I said, "I got nothing to say other than I'm sorry." But then I, like, panicked and I had to
Like,
call the charge nurse and was like, "Is there a leg in room such and such? Because this guy's like, did I miss that somewhere?"
right.
But
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of those things that is less about like the individual nurse's responsibility, and it's more indicative of systemic failure, in my
Absolutely.
opinion.
Yes.
Um, because there was never a day there that we weren't fucking slammed.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, my time there is limited to just a little bit over a year before I ducked out completely for school.
Mhm.
But, um, and at the time it was prime COVID.
Yep.
We, basically waited for people to die upstairs so we could
Mhm.
put, more super sick people up in those rooms.
Yep.
And, um, everybody was overwhelmed.
Oh,
Everybody.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there was never a person you ran into that was like, "Oh, I love my job. This is like, I'm so satisfied with what I'm doing here."
Yeah. And I mean, the answer was, "Here's your fucking pizza party. Now shut up and color." Like,
Yeah.
not that anyone ever had time to go get their pizza, but
I was gonna
that's
say, no, no, I don't think I ever took a lunch there.
yeah, I believe it. Um, such a fine establishment.
Yeah.
Um, and it sucks because that place was staffed with
Mhm.
so many good, like technically proficient,
Yeah,
and
some of the best
compassionate
nurses
people.
and doctors I've ever worked with, and I mean, I stand by that, like, they were absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know how they're doing it, but there's a lot of them that are still there.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, I mean, good on them. Much love to the people at the Bird. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know they've struggled with unions and things like
Mhm.
the union there. I think is fairly good.
Yeah.
Nursing union better than the one that the techs and paramedics were a part of, but um, even then, the union can only do so much, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But I don't know. Definitely an experiential chapter.
Mhm.
Yeah. How happy are you to not be there?
Oh, I wondered if I would, like, miss it. I never had a moment, where I, like, regretted. So, because I was only there, like, just over a year and a half also,
Okay.
and then I actually transferred up to, St. John's, the ER there.
Okay.
So I did more time there, and there was never a time. In fact, I can remember, like, one of my first few days there, um, they had, like, 5 or 6 patients, and they were like, "Wow, we're busy today." And I remember thinking, like, "Holy shit, like, this is less than I had in, like, by myself, like, downtown." And I mean,
Yeah.
they would staff, like, 4 nurses, sometimes you'd have 5. They had 2 providers, and I was like, at Maine, like, I remember running at night with, like, 7 RNs sometimes, and you're
Holy
just
crap.
like, that was, like, not very often, but I remember distinctly 2 nights where everybody just looked at each other and were like, "Oh my god, we're all gonna die."
Yeah.
Um, but St. John's was great, such a good experience. I had a wonderful manager there. She always made sure we had what we needed. Um, Good providers, not quite the caliber of Maine. When you start to just you're not getting the exposure to some of those, like, high acuity patients, but I actually had time to be a nurse. I could do some of the education with the patients. I could, like, take my time caring for them. I mean, it's kinda like, "Okay, this is what nursing is supposed to be again."
Gotcha. Yeah. And no shade thrown at the providers, but a lot of times with those smaller hospitals, that's kind of where physicians go when they've already put in their time
Mhm.
doing all the crazy shit.
Yep.
And, you know, they go there as kind of like their retirement gig or the
Yeah.
one just before retirement. And so
Yep.
the skills and, um, whether it's like hard skills or, like assessment type stuff,
Yep.
maybe falls off a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, but again, no shade on their part because
No, not at all. No, and there was a good number, that were great. I mean, you knew when you walked in, like, okay, whatever comes through the door, we're solid, so and so's here. Then there were the other ones where you're like, all right, it's gonna be a heavy nursing night because, you're gonna be the one helping with these procedures, kind of a thing.
yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally agree.
So all of the heavy negative impacts from the work you do,
Mhm.
what sort of internal impacts would you say there's been? And I mean, we've discussed it a little bit, but let's dig a little deeper if we can.
Um, as far as, I mean, what specifically?
Well, like you said, like you recognized when you went to that conference,
Mhm.
that maybe you're a little fucked up. And
Mhm.
so like what sort of stuff was presenting in your day-to-day life away from work that was indicative that you maybe weren't handling things as well as you thought?
Oh yeah. I think just overall, increased anxiety in general. I mean, like I said, childhood wasn't super great. So I mean, I've always sort of borderline anxiety, depression, that kind of thing. But really, shorter fuse. I just have a lot less tolerance for people in general. Um, just like, everybody. I mean, I just really, the isolation factor just kind of like I'm so overstimulated all the time with just dealing with just constant people, um, just not wanting to really go anywhere, really it's not they always say, like, it's so healthy to have people that are friends outside of your career field. I fully agree, but I definitely have, like, isolated myself away from those people. That just kind of, like, feeling of it's hard to, like, coexist. I mean, I have a hard time separating, like, when I'm talking to somebody and they're telling me how stressful their day was because Teams wouldn't work for their meeting, and I'm like, "I had that guy who blew his head off on the phone with me." Like, man, I wanna care about that, but I just fucking don't. Like,
Yeah.
I just don't. I mean, and that's not fair to them. I mean, and so instead of feeling like a bad friend when I'm with them, I find that I'm not gonna hang out with them, like, that kinda thing. Um, so noticing a lot of that, I mean, like, a lot of my friendships have just, like, really fallen off because 'cause I'm just like, "God damn, I just don't wanna be around anybody." Um, that kinda thing.
Yeah. And it's one of those, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
but yeah, it's once you have that, I don't know, the cumulative stress, like
Mhm.
your baseline
Yeah.
is going to be so much higher than what, someone working a standard 9 to 5 is
Yep.
dealing with.
Mhm.
Um, and like, I know when I got out of the military, this was one of the things that was discussed, in like my first real therapy situation away
Mhm.
from the military was like just going to somewhere like McDonald's or
Mhm.
Walmart, and you see these people that are, let's be honest, they're probably doing the best they can at the job they have.
Sure.
And they, like, I personally had zero chill when it came to them like making mistakes. Like,
Yeah.
how the fuck are you screwing this up?
Yeah.
Your job is so goddamn easy.
Yeah.
And that was a real challenge for me to try
Mhm.
to recognize what the issue was, because
Yeah.
my baseline was so much like more elevated than
Mhm.
what, they might be dealing with.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. The last place I want to be is one of the checkout people at Walmart that's operating like 6 self-scan things and
Yeah.
have a bunch of pissed off people.
Right.
Fuck that, because I don't want to get into a fight in a Walmart. There's no
Right.
good outcome there, okay?
Yeah.
Especially especially in Ionia County. Let's just be real. Oh man. Yeah. It's a challenge relating
Mhm.
to, normal people.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's and I don't it's not fair for me to sit there and kinda downplay. I mean, that stress is no less stressful to them than my stress is. It's just that I have a hard time relating to it anymore. And then too, like, I find, now that I've been doing this for so long, like, I've the whole time essentially that I've been in this field, I've always worked at least 2 jobs. So there's always been this, like, go, 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 um, and I have really noticed lately that, like, I cannot relax. I cannot name a single thing that makes me relax. I can't watch a movie uninterrupted. I can't, like, there's just not a single thing. And so I find that because of that, I'm like, I'm not relaxed when I'm sitting at home. I might as well be working.
Hmm.
So I'm just picking up ungodly hours. I mean, I'm consistently working doubles. I'm running from one job to the next, where it's just like just keep running and then you don't think about it. Like just keep going and you don't have to like slow down and be like, huh, maybe there's a problem here, kind of a thing.
When do you think that's going to catch up to you?
It is now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. The last probably 6, 8 months have really been a struggle.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And what was it that made you realize that you're struggling?
Um, just like that. I mean, just the feeling of like sitting at home, and not that recovery period, like not feeling like I was recovering during that recovery period, so to speak. And then just that feeling of like, I don't want to be home. Like, I don't want to be home because you know, now it's starting to feel like, oh, all these things that I was like, that didn't bother me. That didn't bother me. Suddenly I'm like thinking about them more often, that kind of thing. Um, And like I said, really just had a couple employees start having some struggles where I was having trying to have some meaningful conversations with them, trying to be really supportive of mental health, here, and thinking like, holy shit, how can I dole out this advice? Like, how can I possibly lecture this 20 something year old when I'm sitting here going through the same things essentially? Um, like, it's kinda time to put my money where my mouth is. I mean, time to, like, lead by example kind of a thing.
There's a lot of value in that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I hope so, you know?
So, have you found a therapist? Have you started therapy anywhere?
I have, yeah, it's very early. Like, I've had, like, 3 appointments.
Okay.
I think one thing too, for me anyways, I don't know that everybody's like this, but I think when you wait so long to, like, maybe recognize or pick up on those things, like, something as simple as, like, researching a therapist and, like, picking one is so overwhelming. Not to mention, like I, was telling somebody, I said, "You might have to try 3 or 4." there's nothing wrong with sitting down with one of them and saying, "We're not hitting it off. I don't love your approach. I don't feel comfortable opening up to you." And so just knowing that that's how the process works, it's like when you're already like maxed out on like your functioning, it feels like the thought of like wasting your time and your money going to see somebody that you might be like, "I don't really like you anyways."
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna take the time to research somebody else. So yes, I am, like I said, like 3 appointments so far. Nothing super groundbreaking yet, but
Okay. Um, how many do you think you looked into before going to this one?
oh boy, I did pretty extensive research. I got some kind of referrals, from a different therapist. Um, so, I mean, I probably toyed with this for about a year before I finally, like, made an appointment. Just kinda like I would pick one person, I'd think, "Well, maybe we wouldn't hit it off because of this," or maybe, this kind of a thing. And finally, I was like, "You know what? Just make the fucking appointment, and if it doesn't pan out, you'll make another fucking appointment with someone else." So,
Yeah. I think that's good advice because especially when you're, you know, in that like elevated state of mind, like
yeah.
it is 100%, you're kind of locked in that fight or flight,
Mhm.
and more menial shit like looking up a therapist and
Yeah.
finding what are their hours, where are they located, like
Yep.
that is a lot.
Mhm.
And I think, just make the fucking appointment is
Yeah.
great advice, honestly. Um, and speaking as a therapist, like when my clients are like, "Oh, I think that I would be better served with another clinician," like, "Oh, I hope you haven't been waiting to tell me that." Like,
Right. Yeah.
I'm not here for my own like edification. I'm
Yep.
I'm here to help people. If I'm not the one for you, by all means,
Yeah.
find the one that is, because that's
Mhm.
really all that matters.
Yep.
So, yeah, just make the call. Find one.
Mhm.
I think that's perfect advice. Um, yeah, I think this is probably a good point to take a short break here.
Yeah.
And then we can dig back in.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Hi, it's Josh. I just wanted to break in here real quick while we're taking a break from the show. Um, we're looking for more people to be on next season. I will probably be starting recordings near the end of the summer, and we'd love to have voices that we haven't had before. So far, pretty much everyone that's been on the show has been a contact of mine. Sadly, not all of my contacts are willing to spill their guts on a podcast. So I'd love to have a discussion with anyone that might be interested in coming on the show and telling their story. We'd love to hear more from law enforcement, maybe some of the other branches of service. I've got Army covered. We'd love to hear from some police officers. I've got healthcare covered. That's not to say I don't want more healthcare stories. I think there's a lot to be discussed about that. I recorded an episode with a nurse turned social worker just recently. In fact, you may be listening to that episode now. There's a lot to discuss about healthcare in general. So many things like patient provider ratios and the burnout. It's a rough career. So give me a shout, email me the front seat debrief at gmail.com, and let's have a discussion and get something set up. Otherwise, keep listening to the show. I hope you're enjoying the content, and like, share, and subscribe. Thanks. Okay. We're back. We're here with Natalie still. we talked a little bit about how work changed your, friendships and stuff outside of
Mhm.
work. Um, what has the effect been on like your romantic relationships?
Yeah. As far as, like, the one I'm currently in?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't necessarily want to limit it to that. I don't
Yeah.
know your romantic history, but
Mhm.
I am a little bit aware on that one. So,
Yep. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I didn't, like, date a ton in high school. I mean, I had so much home life stuff going on, that, like, friendships, that kinda thing was so low on my priority, like, surviving sort of took a
Mm,
took priority for us. Um So, I dated a little bit, but I think again, as even like how we talked about friendships, you're naturally drawn to people in the field. Um, like, there's a reason why most responders end up with other responders. There's a reason, I mean, you sort of like just operate inside that bubble. Um, and so, um, I think like, imagining not being with somebody, like, in the responder field is so foreign to me.
mm.
I don't even know, like, I can't even imagine what that would be like. I know plenty of people who are married or date people who, are not in the field. But yeah, I mean, as far as like, you know, in relationships, I think the problems obviously are that you're both bringing traumas home. Like I said, you always think like, "Oh, I'm not doing that. Leave work at work and home at home," and that's a crock of shit, I think, personally. Um, I just don't I've never met somebody who, like, can completely, like, block it off like that. Um, and so all those same things. I mean, short temper, like, lack of interest in hobbies, I mean, your stereotypical, like, things. I mean, times that by 2 now. And that want for, like, isolation, now you're now you have 2 people wanting isolation and that kinda thing. On the other hand, the level of understanding that comes from, like, when you can come home and just be like, "I had a shit call," like, and they just know, "Okay, I know what that means, like, I've been there," yada, yada. That's great. I mean, now my specific situation is a little bit more unique in the sense that there's a generational gap. So, I mean, like, uh,
Eh,
again, you're talking about one person who comes from the generation of like, there was no such thing as mental health. I mean, you took the calls, you got the fuck over it, or so they said, and you went to the next one. Um, I am very much the opposite. I mean, I'm very into learning about mental health. I love that aspect of things. I'm very into like emotional well-being and stuff like that. So you add that and the fact that we're both like really stubborn, headstrong, like dominant personalities, that makes for some interesting conversations sometimes.
yeah, I believe that. And I will say though, to Phil's credit,
Mhm.
being from that, there's no such thing as like mental health.
Yeah.
As my boss, he was very supportive in that respect. Like he sent me to my first like peer support class that I went to.
Mhm.
So he did see that it was something that I was very passionate about
Mhm.
and he encouraged that. And he's been a huge supporter of mine ever since, right?
Yeah.
Um, and again, like he was the guy that had to come tell me, "Hey, you drink way too much when you're off duty." And I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, I was doing it so like I didn't have to respond to like calls
Yeah.
and shit, right?
Right.
Uh, but like he was the one that, drove out to my house and was like, "Look, dude, you're fucking up here."
Mhm.
And I appreciate that. And absolutely did not appreciate it at the time.
Sure.
Um,
Most people don't.
yeah, but it needed to happen, and I'm happy that he was there to do that.
Yeah.
Being at home, and I know like his role was a little bit different,
Mhm.
just because he was the boss man, so he didn't have to dive into all of the really bad calls with us
Mhm.
necessarily.
Yeah.
Can you think of a time when like he came home and was just carrying more than he should have been?
Oh, yeah. I I mean, the problem is I don't think that he recognizes it in himself, where I have always been very, like, intuitive. I think I've tried to be, where, like, "Hey, you seem like you're struggling," like, and where maybe he'll say, like, "Oh, no, I'm in a grumpy mood today." And it's like, "Right, but I think there's, like, something a little bit deeper going on," kind of a thing. So, yeah, there's definitely days where it's kinda like, "Hey, I think, like, your past is coming out to play a little bit," like, you need to check in on that kind of a thing. Certainly, and he'll talk about some calls, not a ton, but he's talked about some of them, and I think the more he's away from it, the more he recognizes, like, that was pretty shitty. Like, now if I had a staff member that took this call, I would be checking in on him, kind of a thing. And he's recognizing, like, I didn't check in on myself, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, and he and I have talked about it quite a bit. And I'm not here to put his shit out for the
Yeah.
public
Yeah, same.
necessarily. Um, Although, Mr. Phil, you could be a guest next season and put your own shit out there.
Yeah,
So just
exactly.
putting that out there.
Right.
um, yeah, I think that through the conversations we've had, like he seems to very much be on board with, you know, proactive
Mhm.
approach to mental health at this point, which
Yeah.
is great.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I think, there's a large portion of the time where grumpy was just Phil's baseline,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
but it it worked, right? And like for me coming to Portland, like I did bring some experience with me. And
Mhm.
so like I remember my interview didn't feel like much of an interview at all. It felt
Yeah.
like a meet the guys and let's talk shop,
Yeah.
which, I loved it and it was a positive change for me at the time. But
Yeah.
um yeah, it's certainly different it was a different culture from where I came from.
Mhm. Yep.
And, like I'm sure you recall me talking with Kevin way back
Yeah.
on
Mhm.
episode 2. The calls out here, while we do have, the bullshit ones where we go to the same address and do nothing,
Yep.
the calls where we are really needed, we are really needed, and they
Oh,
tend to
sure.
be
Yeah.
heavy calls. Like,
Mhm.
working in the inner city, I never once ran a call where a guy got crushed by a combine. Well, guess what? I did
Exactly.
that shit here, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's definitely a lot different. But Phil's retired from EMS now.
Mhm.
And I know this is maybe speculation. And again, I want to protect his privacy as much as we can.
Mhm.
But as his significant other,
Mhm.
like, have you noticed anything that's like maybe a long term effect of him being in the career?
Yeah, again, just that the relationship building aspect, I think that you're so used to, like, in these fields, like, okay, compartmentalize, box everything off, like, to an extent, you do that with your emotions and with other people's emotions, and so, I think just in general, like, how you are able to, like, connect with people beyond, like, a surface level, um, like, I don't seek, like, really deep connections because to me, I'm like, I have enough. Like, I'm dealing with enough, I don't need, like, your shit on top of it, and I think Phil's kind of the same way, um, just in the sense that, like, you know, you just are. You're so used to, like, shoving your emotions down that how does that not affect your personal life too? It just becomes, like, second nature, you deal with something hard where most people would, like, process it and work through it, and it's just that's your second nature to just be like, "I'll get to that later. I'm just gonna get through this for now."
It's like muscle memory.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it it doesn't make relationships any easier.
No. No, it certainly doesn't. No.
And any career within, the first responder sphere,
Mhm.
to include healthcare, there's a higher than average divorce rate,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Um, and makes you wonder, like, how much of that is because people just stuff their shit down and they won't, you know, deal with the, you know, more finicky aspects of like
Mhm.
having a relationship with another person, like in a healthy way.
Yep. Well, and I think too, there's always that fear of like, okay, so I'm gonna deal with the emotional side of this, but what is all gonna come when I open Pandora's box? I mean, is that gonna lead to now I'm having to deal with, 20 years of other trauma because I've allowed myself this emotional, you know, like opening, so to speak.
And I think there's a lot of fear um about that,
Mhm.
Uh and I think, I've probably phrased this in a not so gentle way of like, the people that come from this stuff it down, suck it up, we don't
Mhm.
have feelings. Those are the same ones that, they'll retire from a job where they're dealing with this shit day in and day out.
Mhm.
And then, 5 years later, off themselves in a church parking lot, right?
Yep. Mhm.
Because at some point, all of that shit caught up to that individual and they
Yep.
didn't have the framework or the practice of working through their own shit.
Yeah. Well, and everybody in these fields, I mean, I shouldn't say everybody, but so many people you talk to, this is their identity. And myself included. I mean, that wasn't my intention, but
Yeah.
when somebody's like when you go to a training and they're like, "Tell me a little bit about yourself." Like, "Well, I'm a dispatcher." Like, there's nothing personal there. It's what I do,
Yeah.
but that is who I am. Like, what do you like to do for fun? Pick up overtime? Like, I mean, so it's like all of a sudden these people are also retiring and now like the only sort of existence that they've ever known is gone. And so that whole like how do you relax when you don't know what your hobbies are, when you don't know what can find that reprieve in. And it's just so cumulative and I don't think people think about that always.
No, I would agree. I really would. And it's funny because earlier in the day, I was editing a previously recorded episode,
Mhm.
and it's the episode with Dr. Tara Consolino, and we discussed that whole, that loss of identity that comes with,
Mhm.
completing a career in this world.
Yeah.
Um, and I kind of walked through how I experienced that loss of identity multiple times, right?
Mhm.
I was a soldier, then I wasn't.
Yep.
And then I was a paramedic, a firefighter, and then I wasn't. It's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck do you do with yourself?
Mhm.
Like, you have to reinvent who you are and
Yeah.
what you're about. And, you know, generally by the time people get to the age where they need to do that, they don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Or it's so overwhelming to think about working through all the shit that you need to get to that point that most people are like, it's not worth it."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a struggle. And, like, I can't say that I will never struggle with the loss of those identities again
Mhm.
because shit, I've been out of the army. Ooh, I think I came home from Iraq 16 years ago.
Mhm.
I still miss elements of being in the army.
Sure.
I think I always will.
Mhm.
Um, I damn sure will never find myself wearing that uniform again.
Mhm.
Um, but there's always that element of like, well, what if?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, my brother, he was in the Marines. He did a stint in the Marines, did a deployment to Afghanistan, that kind of thing. Same thing. He got out of it, and then I think, you know, w without trying to speak for him, I think kinda had that same, like, "Wait a minute, what the hell do I do now?" I mean, I mean, people joke about how the military brainwashes you, right? But I mean, that's for your safety. I mean, you have to believe that that is your purpose. I mean, that's how they get people to be able to come home successfully from these like horrible places. Um, he joined back up,
no kidding.
and like did the reserve thing for a little bit longer, and then ended up getting back out of it. But what did he choose to do? He went into law enforcement. So I mean, you still have that element of a lot of the same like similarities.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean that absolutely becomes your identity.
yeah. And I think that your brother's situation is certainly not unique in that respect, right?
Mhm.
Like, I was a medic in the army and I wanted to be a medic in the civilian world. Like, let's
Mhm.
work on some real people, right?
Mhm.
Um and yeah, so like shit, just thinking about the law enforcement officers I know, how many of them are prior service? Like,
Yep.
so
Yeah, ton.
many. Yeah. Um so yeah, I think that people that find themselves in the military are most typically people that go there because they feel some sort of obligation for service.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And because they're of that mindset, they want to find a way to keep serving after
Mhm.
their time in the nation's uniform is done.
Yeah.
But and that that brings with it a whole host of other bullshit to deal with, right?
Mhm.
Um yeah, I mean, shit, I just connected with a Marine in New York today who is wanting to become a social worker. So,
Mhm.
um, kind of a cool conversation.
Oh, I bet.
And I'm happy to discuss that kind of stuff and see if I can help lead the way on that. And, several of the friends that I served with are either in school or in a role somewhere
Mhm.
doing the same stuff that I do, which is just super,
It's
super
great.
good to see. Um,
Absolutely.
because part of the driving force behind me picking this was that there's a real difficulty for people who were in the military,
Mhm.
for people who work EMS, work fire, work in the hospital, like that whole relational thing that we talked about with friendships.
Yep.
There's that missed connection too when it comes to therapists. So,
100%.
and that's part of the trouble of finding someone that you can connect with. And
Mhm.
so the number of us that are out there that do this are not there's not a ton of us.
No, there's not, and that was sort of part of my, hesitation to try and, like, find a therapist is, like, if I have to spend 30 minutes of my 1-hour session with you explaining how I do my job before we can get into why my job is traumatizing me, now you've lost, like I've lost any sort of effectiveness that this might have, had. Because now when I'm talking, I already know that you don't understand fully what my role is or what, those effects have had on me kind of a thing. So I think that's great. I mean, yeah, the only way to fix that is for more people to jump on board and go to school so that there are people who are like, "Yep, been there, done that." Like,
Yeah,
you don't need to spend 6 sessions explaining to me what you do. Let's just jump right in.
right. Yeah, because I mean, your average therapist that went from high school to college to grad school to practice,
Mhm.
they might talk to you and be like, "Oh, so you answer phones for job?" Like,
Right. Yeah.
like, bitch, like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
um, yeah. And you're right because that understanding goes so far. One of my friends has had a therapist tell him that the event he was talking about didn't happen. Like, that's an awfully bold assumption to
Right.
jump to. And they don't even have the frame of reference to explain to them how fucked up
Mhm.
that perspective is, right? Like,
Right.
so yeah, you kind of have to, bail out of that situation and find somebody that might know a thing or two, right?
Mhm.
So it is a challenge. Um, as we discussed earlier, your healing journey is still really in its infancy.
Mhm.
What are some things that you've been trying to focus on, or maybe what are some areas of life that you're trying to branch out into a little bit more to help you with your journey?
Oh, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's so early. Um, I mean, right now I'm just trying to make sure I'm just, like, going to the appointments. Um, it's super easy to cancel. Just
Mhm.
click a button. Um, so just trying to, like, make sure I'm, like, following up with those appointments. I know that I need to cut back on hours. I know that I need to, like, the only way for my body to slow down is if I slow it down. So, trying to look at that and kinda like, "All right, do I need to be doing 80 to 100 hours a week? Nope, I don't. So now what do I wanna fill that time with? So that way, like, I'm not just sitting home, like, twiddling my thumbs and, just, like, racing thoughts kind of a thing. Um, so I'm hoping, I'll be able to answer that question more effectively maybe in a few months. But right now it's pretty unknown and foreign.
You should get a motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I am, I was just having this conversation at work with somebody the other day. We were talking about how there are 2 types of people in this field. There are the people who, like, won't ever ride a motorcycle because of what they have seen, and then there are the people who are like, "I know life is short, and so I'm gonna do it," and Phil and I represent those 2 categories. Um, like, so I probably never say never, but
Yeah,
as of right now, every time I think about that, I'm like, remember that call where that guy threw up all over you and his friend was laying next to him pancaked?" Like, you know, I can't help but think of those things.
right. And it's funny because honestly, like, I was not the person that wanted a motorcycle. Like, I wanted to get
Mhm.
my license,
Yep.
and I wanted to basically ride dirt bikes, like
Mhm.
enduro bikes, street legal dirt bikes. And I
Sure.
wanted to stick to dirt roads because I know what kind of drivers are out there, right?
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately what did it for me was the fact that, and you know this as well as I do, you can be in the safest automobile ever,
Mhm.
wearing your seatbelt, doing all the right things,
Mhm.
and your life can end in an instant,
Mhm.
regardless of all of the safety features,
Yep.
regardless of the fact that you're obeying every law.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it for me. Like, it
Mhm.
clicked, like, oh, well, it doesn't matter.
Sure.
And it was a little scary. I'll be perfectly honest.
Mhm.
Um, but then again, you've probably seen me like bombing around town like a hooligan with no helmet, no safety equipment, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I kind of got to that phase, but for the most part, I do what I can to
Sure.
mitigate risk.
Yeah. Well, and that's, Phil and I have had to just kinda, like, come to terms with that, it's like, I won't ask you to give it up. I mean, I don't expect that, but, like, then let's negotiate, you know, I want a full face helmet. I want, don't ride at dusk when all the deer are out. Just like go out, ride it, have fun, like, don't bar hop while you're on your bike.
Yeah,
Just like you said, mitigate what risks you can control because I know that, like, and I always tell him, it's not that I don't trust you on your bike, it's that I don't trust everyone around you,
right.
and so it's like, if you just do these things, like, I won't say a word, like, go have fun, like, great. Just, there's, like, certain I mean, because like, working here, when he's out on his bike, I always say, like, you know Um, I sound like I'm so controlling. Someone's like, "Text me where you're gonna be riding, like, text me when you stop, like, let me know when you're home," and it's like but the panic that sets in when you take a call on a crash and you're like, "What color is the bike? I need a plate." Like, turn around, get me a license plate. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah,
always say, like, "There's a valid reason why I'm that way," or it's
yeah,
valid to me.
right.
Anyways.
Yeah. No, and I totally understand that side of it. So for my role in some of his later nights out on the bike, I'm sorry. Um, yeah, but like he and I have had some really good days on the bike,
Mhm.
and like I really don't like riding after dark.
Yeah,
Because you're right, the deer around here are numerous and suicidal,
they are.
and
Yeah.
and unfortunately I have to admit that now as I'm, firmly ensconced in middle age, my nighttime vision is not as, you know, good as it used to
Yeah.
be. So I just tend to prefer to ride during daylight hours.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, that said, the kind of riding I enjoy doing, it takes all day and it's going to be
Mhm.
dark when I get home.
Yep.
But legitimately though, the sense of freedom and uh the way that riding is so grounding, and
Mhm.
like you can't be more acutely locked into the current moment
Mhm.
anywhere else the way you can on a motorcycle, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And so that was a super huge development for me in
Mhm.
my healing.
Yep.
So I always have to throw it out there.
Yeah. You made a good sale there, Josh. I'll make sure I'll think about that next time we're arguing about it.
Oh my god. It would be hilarious if you're like, you know what? Maybe I'm gonna go take that safety course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man, that would be amazing. Um, yeah. What sort of stuff would you be open to? Like, would you be open to like engaging in groups with other first responders that are trying to find, healthy outlets.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm quite open-minded. I'm not opposed to much of anything, when it comes to that kinda stuff. Just there's not a ton of it, availability-wise.
No, there's not. And I think one of the pitfalls that I think frequently accompanies this group is that when you tend to get a bunch of us together, it tends to be we're getting fucked up. Like,
Mhm. Sure.
because, we didn't really dig too much into negative coping mechanisms, but
Yeah.
um given your family history of,
Mhm.
substance use issues, m- I would not be surprised to hear you say that you try to avoid that stuff at all costs, which
Yeah, I when I was younger, I definitely I mean, I would have drinks, I think as I've gotten older and I think probably worked my way further into, like, not so healthy mental health. Um, I think a lot of this job feels like you're out of control, and that feels like one thing I can control. And so I've really shied away from that, just kind of naturally. I'm not super opposed. Like I wouldn't go to a bar and like not order a drink. But it's certainly like always in the back of my mind. Alcoholism runs on both sides, heavily. Um, Drug abuse on, my mother's side. In fact, actually the story of me getting hired for Portland, I don't know if Phil's ever told you that or not, but
I don't think so.
yeah, one of the medics at the time was my little brother's best friend's dad. And so he knew that I had gotten my EMS, license. He's like, "Come work for Portland. It's pretty chill. Like it's not super crazy here. Like get your feet wet." And he'd mentioned to Phil, like, "Hey, I have this girl who's a new EMT. I think she'd be a good fit." Phil's like, "Okay, what's her name?" And Brad told him my name, and immediately, mom was what we would call a seeker, a regular.
Okay.
And so Phil heard the name, and he immediately said, "Who's her mother?" And Brad like said, and Phil's like, "Nope, no fucking way." Like, not
Jeez.
even gonna attempt it. So, yeah, certainly I, try and just stay away from that stuff. I have that ultimate fear of, like, that spiral that you can't come out of,
Oh yeah.
which is not healthy in and of itself,
Right.
but, it is what it is.
I mean, that awareness though is huge. And um yeah, like with that predisposition, like it would be way too easy to fall into that trap.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um and I mean, like, let me just say this. I'm not at all surprised that you drank a bit growing up because you grew up in Matherton, went to
Yeah,
school in Pewamo.
right.
Like, the fuck else is there to do?
Yeah,
No judgment here whatsoever.
right.
Um, but yeah, it is a challenge though when you're trying to get like a group of, individuals from those services together to do
Mhm,
something that allows you to kind of blow off some steam
mhm,
and, you know, down regulate maybe some of the negative shit that you carry, right?
mhm. Yeah.
Um, I don't know, maybe that's something that I'm gonna have to think about, like find some way to connect people to do shit that's not, you know, centered around substance abuse.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that, but like when I went out looking for propane earlier, I had to pick up a fifth of liquor. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah. Um, what about people that have helped kind of pave the way to you working on yourself? Have there been any like key individuals that um sort of made that easier for you?
Um, yeah, I don't think, like, family-wise, that was a big, like, priority, ever, like, I didn't witness anybody really directly in my family. Um, I know, like, I think both my brothers have dabbled with therapy. I don't know, like, how deeply, or anything like that. But as far as here, I mean, specifically, there are a few, like, people that have gone through some shit that are big proponents of therapy and supportiveness. The sergeant that I mentioned to you earlier, um, he's just huge on it. I mean, he is just like, I always call him like, he's just like the dad,
Mm,
he's always checking in on people. He calls me 2 to 3 times a week and we usually chat for 20 to 30 minutes and just, "Hey,
okay.
how are you?" Like, what what's your head like, kind of a thing. Always checking in. That's just like always at the forefront. He's such a big proponent. And he's been so open about his own story. Um, again, trying to just kind of protect his, privacy, but um he's been very open about his own struggles. He does not shy away from telling people, what he's been through and what he's dealt with. And so hearing, especially a male who's older and been in the field for so long, like really embrace like good mental health and asking for help if you need it and being so open to talking about that. Um Again, I saw, with that newer dispatcher when she said how much that affected her, witnessing that exchange, kind of like realizing like, hey, he's going to be gone in a few years. Like who's going to fill that gap, Kind of like, do I wait and hope someone else does or do I want to try and, become that myself?
Yeah. Um, no, I'm so happy to hear that there's somebody out there doing that. And, I really enjoy having a conversation with him at some point, and
Mhm.
maybe we can make that happen. What do they have any like chaplain affiliated with the sheriff's department out there?
If they do, I'm not aware of one.
Okay.
I think the city of Ionia for a while had some sort of service, somebody that works for them. I don't know if they still do or not. But nothing that I'm super aware of. No.
What about victims advocates? Do they ever like come in and support dispatch or
Oh yeah.
sheriff's office? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, our VA team here in the county is fantastic. Denise DeShane heads that up. And she's great. When she gets sent out on calls, she's always messaging us, "Hey, who took that call? Are they okay?" She'll drop off little treats afterwards or
Mm.
stop up and, "Do you need a hug?" And that kind of thing. They're fantastic. They're a fantastic resource that is always very like in tune with that.
Yeah. And I'm fairly certain that I had run into Denise on a
Mhm.
scene or two here or there, but yeah, I just love that, you know. Uh, Honestly, I think that being in Portland was my first experience having, a victims advocate unit
Mhm.
that would like respond to the scene because,
Yep.
in Grand Rapids or Kent County, like I was never on scene long enough for anything like that to be a
Yeah.
thing. Um so
Yeah,
yeah,
they play a huge role.
yeah, and they are also a group that I think should be lumped in with first responders
Mhm.
because they really have a much harder job than what I think anyone might think.
Mhm. Oh, well, yeah, I
Um,
mean, they're responding to the same scenes and the same calls we are, so
and
absolutely.
they're there for much longer than we are in a lot of
Mhm.
cases, right?
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I love that they're doing that work. So much love for them. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I've dealt with like Clinton County Sheriff's Office, and they've got a chaplain who's also like very involved. He's part of their, well, he kind of leads the whole SISM team.
Okay.
Um, so a great person to get connected with as far as resources and things. But yeah, I love that you've got a sergeant out there that's doing the work, whether or
Mhm.
not that's specifically his responsibility.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What would you say is your best advice to someone that might be struggling with shit?
I mean, seek help. Um, Even if that means nothing more than just like finding a confidant to start, just somebody to, you know, talk shit through with. Um, I think sometimes just taking the step of like releasing some of that burden so you're not like just trying to hold on to that solo. I think sometimes just that alone, just kind of cluing somebody in like, hey, this is really like hitting me pretty hard. And even if it's like, I don't know what to do with it, I don't really know, like, there's nothing you can do to fix it. I just need you to listen. I think that's a great first step. But I mean, I've said for years, like, I think everybody should just have a therapist just for, I always kind of joke with people. I just say, like, it's like an oil change for your car. Just like, even if you go monthly, bi-monthly, something, just to have somebody where you're just like doing a little check in here and there.
Mhm.
And that way, when you have like those shitty calls where you're like, oh, I need some intensive work, that you're already established. Like the relationship is built, the rapport is built. You're not like starting over and digging through all this trauma like
Yeah,
from the jump.
yeah. I think that's great advice, really. Because it is tough because, having been in that position myself,
Mhm.
like worst call ever, the next day having difficulty engaging with like normal calls, right?
Mhm.
Like you just I remember I didn't feel like I was in the space where I could handle that stuff,
Mhm.
and I couldn't focus, I couldn't do anything. I felt like I
Yep.
couldn't do my job.
Mhm.
And I remember like coming off the road and like I didn't really know how to approach the subject because like
Mhm.
in my case, like I had responded to this call as a paid on call firefighter.
Mhm.
My ambulance company was the one that responded to the scene with their medics. So they were all aware of the situation.
Mhm.
They didn't know that I was involved.
Okay.
And I just felt like, I don't really know how to bring this up.
Right.
And, they sent me home. Of course, they said, okay, if you need anything,
Right.
here's the number for EAP.
Yeah, the EAP. Love it.
And I've been meaning to ask you,
Mhm.
do you know of anyone that has used EAP and what the experience was with it?
Um, yeah, so we offer 2 for, our dispatchers. The county provides one, and then we pay for a separate one that is more geared towards specifically first responders.
Mm,
Um, I know a few people have used it. Um, I think the problem I see with it is that it's not a long-term solution, or, like, if it
right.
is, it doesn't they're just kinda, like, pairing up numbers, like, "Okay, you need a therapist? Here's next on our list." And so some of the feedback I've gotten is like, "Well, they referred me to somebody, like, in Rockford, and I live, like, in the southern part of the county." Like, not super feasible, not a great option, or, like, a lot of people, have said, like, it just didn't feel very personal. Like, I think it's still good to offer it. I mean, I see the value in, like, if you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody maybe it's easier to open up, at first, but I don't know. It just seems like it's not quite the right thing sometimes.
Yeah. And it is hard because I think a lot of them, uh, they get you plugged in for like 3, maybe 6 visits.
Mhm.
And then ideally the goal is, look, if this is something that needs more processing than just that,
Yep.
let's transition you into, you know, seeing a therapist like on the insurance, because generally with EAPs, those first initial visits are at no cost to
Mhm. Yep.
whoever's dealing with this shit. But because of the way it's structured, I think it is very hard for people to feel seen and heard
Mhm.
because, well, here's a 1-800 number. We have no fucking clue who you're going to actually talk to.
Right.
And we don't know what the outcome of that situation is going to be.
Mhm.
So there's a huge element of that human connection that's absent in that exchange.
Yeah. Well, and like you mentioned with insurance, there's no guarantee that the person you're initially talking to takes your insurance.
That's
Or
true too.
if they don't, some people here are like on spousal insurance, like they don't take the county's insurance. So like if all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, it's been nice talking to you, but I don't take that." So on to the next. And it's like, "But I just dug into all this shit and now I have to start all over." And so I think people are just like discouraged by that. And it's like, I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to deal with that either.
Yeah. And I think that kind of is like an artificially high bar for entry for a lot of
Yeah.
folks.
Mhm.
Um, which is, it's tough because how does a municipality or how does a private company
Mhm.
overcome that?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I think in a lot of cases it feels like the company's like, well, our insurance provider has this number and
Mhm.
bam, we check that box. Nothing else needs to be said about it.
Right. Mhm.
And, like again, that high bar to entry
Yeah.
keeps people out.
Well, and I think, it's not feasible, but the dream would be to have somebody that could come in and meet with these, dispatchers and say like, "Okay, they're good to work." Like, I keep referencing the line of duty death, but that was just such a pivotal point in my career and like my, you know, even what's affecting me today that I just always use that as a frame of reference. But I remember we worked that incident, and to no fault of their own. Again, just a lack of, I think, experience, exposure, knowledge. But like we notified our higher ups immediately. Back then, we didn't have supervision on nights, and it was kind of like, okay, are you guys all set? And we kept
Mhm.
working. Um, and then we worked the next day and we came in for the debrief, which I did not want to go to um, at all. And I think Phil was the one that was like, I think you need to go. And in fact, I don't know if you ever worked with Zach Waltersdorf.
Yeah.
Um, but he actually was the one that said, like, you need to go. And I threw up like 3 times on the drive over. Like, I just was like, did not wanna fucking go. Um, but we went to that debrief, and immediately after, it was simultaneously, like, one of the most healing and traumatizing experiences I've ever been through, but we had to, work immediately after.
Mm.
Um, and I don't know if it would've been better to go home. I really can't tell you because I worked, so, I mean, obviously, it was fine, but it felt like, god damn, like, I shouldn't be here. Like,
Yeah.
the frame of mind I'm in right now, like, I should not be here. And I didn't know how to tell people that I was not okay. I mean, people would be like, "How are you?" And I would burst into tears, but it was like, what are you gonna do about it? I mean, and I would love to have the ability to bring somebody in and talk to somebody and actually be able to assess them and say like, "Okay, time off would benefit them." here's how to proceed with this specific person. Or this person, you know what? They're better off working. I mean, some people are. Some people say, like, I want the distraction of work. That's great. I want to be able to treat people on a case by case basis and not
Yeah.
make it an across the board thing. Um, how we get there, or if we can ever get there, who knows?
Right.
But
And yeah, and you may recall from the SISM class, right? Like
mhm,
they, at least in the one I went to, they talked a lot about how some of what they do is trying to be patterned after like a military approach to
mhm,
taking care of casualties in combat. Like
yep,
if you can keep them near the front, let them, you know, patch up whatever needs to be patched up and
mhm,
then put them back in that environment where there is that, common experience, that support from,
sure,
your brothers, like that can be very beneficial.
mhm,
But then again, at the same time, like there's very much that point where like maybe it's a good idea to like let you take the rest of this shift off
right,
because when you're so like emotionally and mentally numb to what
mhm,
you're doing, especially in a high risk profession,
mhm,
you know, having that safety valve that you can be like, bam, we hit this line and, we're pulling you back for this
yeah,
shift,
yeah,
W-
yep. Well, and like I said, I mean, going home may not have been the answer. You know, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer would have been. Um, you know, maybe having somebody in here that hadn't worked the incident, so it was like, "Hey, I need to step out. I know they're solid because they didn't sit through this." Um, maybe that's the answer for us. I'm not sure. I don't know what the best way to proceed is to give them the best shot at, like, solid follow-up?
right. And when you're so minimally staffed, it's not like you have a huge roster of people that
Right.
you can backfill with.
Yep.
Yeah. It is a challenge. Um, but again, I think that, having these kind of conversations about it
Mhm.
and, raising awareness by, the extension of people watching
Mhm.
this, that that's a step in the right direction.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, I think too that it was super beneficial to kind of dig into just how complex your job there is
Sure.
because anybody that's outside of this field that might listen to this podcast, they might get a whole freaking education on
Mhm.
something they never would have even imagined.
Mhm.
But then again, there's people in ambulance or on a fire department that don't fully understand just what all is happening.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I had no idea. I came in totally blind to this field as, a 20-year-old. Like, I mean, I really did think they just, like, answered phones. I mean, it was just I mean, I do think it's, like, one of the most misunderstood professions, through no fault of anybody's. Simply
Yeah.
just it's hard to you don't know what it looks like in here until you know. I mean, and we do have we'll have some fire department guys come in, sometimes sit along or something, and it's kinda um like, if we get real busy with something, they're like, "Holy shit, I didn't know you know, that's what came with a call like this," kind of a thing. And that's super nice. We love when people come up here and get educated on what we do because it's like, you can't really believe it until you, like, see it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What would you say your hope for the future is?
Um, just kinda like what you're working on, bring more of this to the forefront of what we do and make mental health I mean, just it's really an everyday thing. I mean, for every single person, and just making sure that, I think that we're checking in with everybody and with ourselves and, making it so that seeking help is not such a taboo, like, hush hush, I'm scared I'm gonna lose my job situation. I think that should really be like something to give kudos for. Um, I think that's, what I'm getting out of it is like, bring it out of the shadows, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I touch on this in a couple other episodes, but like well, I guess Gen Z is very, you're not Gen Z, are you?
No, I think I'm technically considered millennial.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Gen Z, I think, is coming up with a very healthy respect for mental health.
Mhm.
And so I have a lot of hope in that they will help usher in like
Yeah.
very positive changes in that respect.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, it will be interesting to see though, for sure.
Mhm.
And I hope things up there at Central Dispatch improve, and I hope that you're able to make meaningful progress toward, a better way of handling things.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have a very supportive our director is extremely supportive. I think all of us, as supervisors, um, we certainly support people, like, you know, I don't want people to feel like I said, those other posts that I've seen where it's like, "Oh, don't tell them, you're gonna be blacklisted." Like, that is not at all the type of center that we are or we wanna be known as,
Yeah.
at all. And, I have a really young team. I've got, like, 2, I think one is 20 and one maybe 22 now. Um,
Dang.
yeah, they're super young, and I learn so much from them. Just the way that they're super open about, like, mental health and, like, they're just so in tune with what they're feeling and what they're going through, and it's really refreshing because I kind of am like the sandwich generation. I kinda came
Mhm.
in, I learned from the people that were like, "Ah, suck it up," "Rub some dirt on it." Um and then I'm kind of, like, now seeing this new generation be ushered in, and it's a cool place for me to be,
Yeah.
seeing the positives and the negatives from both sides of the fence.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Um, so do you think there's anything that you thought we would talk about but didn't, or anything that you wanted to talk about but we didn't?
Mm, I don't think so. Not that I can really think of. Do you have any other burning questions that
No, I don't think so. Um,
okay.
yeah, I really appreciate your time, especially if you end up driving up to dispatch just
Oh,
for
no,
this.
no
I mean,
problem. Like I said, with Axel at home, that would have been a disaster.
yeah. Well, I mean, we still end up having to hear my dogs, but um, it is what it is.
Yep.
Um, Thank you so much for taking the time to do this,
Oh, yeah.
and
No, I
thank you
appreciate
for
it.
being flexible because we had to, what, this is the third time we scheduled this.
Yeah, I got sick, then you got sick.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
fucking COVID, man.
Yeah, I was, like, laying on the couch that day, and I was like, I'm gonna doze for, like, a little bit, wake me up, I'm gonna get ready," and Phil's like, "You've thrown up, like, 3 times in the last hour. I don't think that this is gonna be, like, a solid thing for you to do."
Yeah. No, I'm like, you handle what you need to do,
Yeah.
and this is secondary, like,
Right.
not an issue at all. But yeah, I really enjoyed our conversation, and
Yeah, same.
I think I think there's a lot of value in what was said, and I'm looking forward to getting this one out.
Good, good. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime, and
Alright.
maybe we can get Phil to come on here for next season, but
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think that's kind of the end of season 1 of the Front Seat Debrief, and that does it for this episode. If you like what you heard, like it, share it, subscribe it, leave us reviews. Every little bit helps, and yeah, we will catch you on the next season. Thanks so much. Bam, we checked that box. Nothing else needs to be said about it.